Okay, so we can just start right off with maybe a short introduction of the QPR supporter club in Norway. I met you a few years ago in your office, and I gave you a brief introduction to our community. And at the moment, I think we are, I don't know, 600 registered members. Is that correct? Those of you with some, yeah, 500 says Kåre. That's the guy in the car, I think.
Okay.
And the supporters club was founded in 1989. There was a few efforts done in the late 70s, but that supporters club fell down after a few years and was then re-established in 1989, which is the supporters club that we are a part of now. It was called QPR Scandinavia, but a few years ago we changed it to QPR Norway. And quite a few of us travel to England on a regular basis, and the community is quite strong as well to be a championship club. And maybe you can introduce yourself, Lee. Tell us about how you came to QPR.
Yeah, sure. I've probably many of you know I'm American, but I've been in England for I guess about 22 years now, 23 years. I've had a number of clubs. I've done the tour of England via football clubs, starting at Fulham, then Southampton, then Leicester City, then Burnley, then finally back down south again. I know how big Norwegian ours are. It's great, fantastic support from Norway. I often see some of you in the Dorchester when you come over for the matches. So I know you here quite a bit, and also one of the first people I met when I came here was from the Norwegian R's, which is still one of my favorite stories, because you may remember when we had the pre-season in Holland. And then at the last minute, the authorities decided to not allow the punters into the grounds, which was a complete debacle. So we arranged to have a streaming back to a pub, and I had a few beers. I think I bought people a number of beers, but the one beer I remember the most was one that was 14.5% ABV, and my head was absolutely spinning. And I went downstairs into the toilet downstairs, and as I was utilizing the facilities, somebody came in and said, "Hi, I'm from the Norwegian R's," and having gone through everything of why we did it, what happened, and everybody being very upset until I started buying beers, and everybody being very happy. The guy from the Norwegian R's said, "This might be the wrong place to say this, but I have to say you've got balls." And I cracked up, and it's still one of my favorite stories from the Norwegian R's. So I don't know if that person's on this call or not, but I still remember it like it was yesterday because it was absolutely hysterical. So well played on that one.
You don't remember his name, I guess.
I do not. I just had a beer that was 14.5% ABV. I was absolutely. I could barely remember my name.
It was Frode Rekve.
I think it was Frode. I think it was Frode Rekve.
Is that right? Is he on?
No, he's not.
No.
Right.
He'll probably be watching this as well, so
okay.
We'll give him a heads up about this one.
Very good.
Okay, I'll leave the word to Dag Håkon. He will start the Q&A from our side.
Okay. I think you're still on mute.
Dag Håkon, du må avmute.
Wow. Miracles happen. You hear me now?
There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I tried to say that we'll have to discuss money with you, and you might not be the one in charge of providing it, but you are in charge of spending it, as far as I know. And how much better are we financially compared to when you came here? How would you describe the club's journey in that respect over the last few years?
Well, we've managed to greatly decrease costs, and the biggest cost is, of course, player payroll, and that's always going to be. I don't know any football club that's going out of business because they've ordered too much stationery. Obviously, we look to cut everywhere we can across the board. One of the things I'm very pleased about is we did not have to resort to redundancies to get rid of people. We've used natural attrition, and we've probably gotten the non-football side down to as lean and mean as I possibly can get it. I think if we lose any more people, we have to get replacements in because we just can't cut any more than what we've cut already. On the playing side, I think it's about doing deals that are a lot more. So that the basics a lot lower, very manageable now going forward in terms of where we are. I think we have a clear business plan of what we're doing now. We know we need to rely on the young up and coming players, that we have to develop those kinds of players to mend the huge gap we have in terms of the operational revenue versus what the expenses are. People like Ezzy coming through the door. You can see some new ones coming now, like Willock and like Chair. It's those type of players are saving grace. COVID-19 has obviously hit us very hard, but I think if we hadn't have done what we've done over the past 3.5, 4 years before it hit, we'd have really been in trouble. Whereas opposed, there are a lot of other clubs who say, I actually like to be in your position right now because you've actually cut your cloth and your losses aren't anywhere near what ours are going to be due to the COVID situation. So I think we've got things under control. The biggest problem we have here though is it's still from a operational standpoint. I just can't see how we can generate enough operational income to cover it. We're always going to be in a position where we're looking for that sale of a player. And every once in a while we'll be in a position where we don't have to sell a player. We say, okay, we can kind of hold on to things. This year I think we're looking more. It's less about selling players than it is about holding on to players this season as we consolidate things for that next step forward.
I did see a newspaper the other day saying QPR optimistic in spite of losses. I do not know if that came from the club, if it's a quote, or if it's just the newspaper headline. But are we more optimistic despite of losses then?
I think let's say the losses have come down considerably, but we're still not making money, so the owners still have to write out a check every month. I think the optimism it was not from the club, by the way. I don't know of any release that's gone out that said that, but I think if there's grounds for optimism, it's about how we finished last season, where we've seen what the squad can do. We're out trying to make a few additions to bolster that squad forward, and I think the football for the past couple of years, you can see an improvement on the pitch, and so therefore, yeah, why wouldn't you be optimistic about what's happening on the pitch?
But are we okay? Compared to the FFP rules, I mean, the numbers that came out lately was for the 1920 season, and it's been a full season since then. Are we okay as far as these rules are concerned?
Yes. So we're within the confines of FFP. Well, that's one thing we don't have to worry about.
You being American and coming from a country where professional team sports are organized in a totally different way from Europe, we had a so-called Super League that existed for a day or two, a little bit of time back. Do you have any thoughts as an American on how the American way of organizing sports are totally shut down when somebody tries to establish it in Europe?
Yeah, it's somebody didn't read the room correctly in that particular state. It was a huge mistake to even think that could get off the ground. Although interestingly, while it's an American model, it was the Spanish who were the primary drivers behind it. So that's and the person I think I admire the most out of that, who came out for me with credibility, was John Henry from Liverpool, where he just stood up and said, I made the mistake. He didn't let anybody else take the fall for it. He just said, I messed this up. I got it wrong. We shouldn't have done this. And I thought, oh, fair play. It's nice to hear someone take responsibility for everything and not, because it's been many times when a chief executive has had to take responsibility for board decisions that they may not have even agreed with. So fair play to John Henry for saying, yep, got that completely wrong. And I think the Big Six have lost a lot of power because their power had always been the threat of doing a breakaway league. Now that they've tried to do it and they've been slammed shut, they've lost a lot of power, negotiating power on that respect now.
So people are not walking around being nervous of something like this happening again in the near future. This is sort of dead and buried now.
I think it would be really difficult. The FA have come down very hard on have now have implemented rules and and also fined the guys who tried to do it. They'd be looking at a 30-point deduction if they tried it again. I can't see this getting off the ground anytime soon. I get the reason they wanted some kind of income stabilization, because I've had people from the States, when they're looking at English football, saying, but your revenue in the Premier League is here, but in the Championship it's here, and if it goes to League One, it's like it's off the screen down there. So how can you possibly budget when you've got that range of potential revenue in just 3 years time? And the answer is with difficulty. I think there's a lot. It's not. It's a combination of art and science, and you just have to try to be as flexible as you can with your contracts and rely a lot on contingency payments.
You were mentioning back to QPR. You were mentioning the operational income a moment ago, and you have been talking a lot about the importance of a new stadium. Is there anything at all that can be said about that, or are we just doomed to sit and wait and see what happens in the council?
I think we're totally in the hands of the council. The problem is there are very few sites available in West London that would accommodate a stadium, and those that are, if you can develop housing on it, it's worth a heck of a lot more money than it would be for as a stadium. So while we would continue to look at other sites, at the moment, I think it's important that we absolutely exhaust what we can do at the Linford Christie site, because that would be an ideal solution if we could move there. But that keeps being pushed back by the council, and understandably, because with COVID and everybody working from home and trying to get things over the line, things are just taking a lot longer than normal.
Is renting at the Linford Christie an option, or are we? Have we set our sights on owning a stadium? Is that a must?
I mean, the preference would always be to own the stadium. If you had to rent, it would have to be a very long-term freehold, because situation like Coventry had, where it was I think it was a 25-year lease, which for me is far too short a time. They end up getting into a situation where they have no stadium at the end, and being a homeless football club. And for me, that is not the answer. Football club needs a stadium as an anchor in order to sustain itself and to survive, which is again the reason I don't like the what's been done in terms of a buy, a sell and lease back provision that some of the clubs have done as well. I just think that completely weakens the club, takes the one real tangible asset that a football club has, and takes it off the balance sheet, which is crazy in my opinion. What's even crazier is they're doing it to try to adhere to FFP rules, which is supposed to be to make the clubs financially stronger.
How much would it mean in operational income to have a stadium and use it for other purposes? In percentage out of what we are making now, must be sort of 35 million turnover. Is that correct?
I'd be shooting for 30 million in turnover. Right now we turn over about 18 million a year, but with additional seating, with additional premium seats, but in particular what you do on a non-match day, because that's our problem now, is we literally have next to no usage on a non-match day. That really is where it makes up the difference.
And how much will the difference be, you think?
You're probably in the neighborhood, right? Around 30 million. Yeah. So the difference is probably looking at probably an additional 12 million.
But we did get our training ground in the end. When are we going to see the first team jogging around Heston?
Well, first things first. We're still waiting to get that across. Well, they granted us planning permission. I think it was April the 1st. It was the weekend before Easter. They still haven't gotten the report to the GLA, so I'm still waiting for Hounslow Council to get the report to the GLA, because that starts the 21-day clock ticking for objections. We've notified the council today. Is there anything more we can do to get this process started? So hopefully that they get that done pretty quickly now.
And then there is some physical work to be done, some building work to be done after that.
The biggest, the first thing we want to get started on are the pitches, because what we don't want is this to drag out and we miss this summer, because this drags out into autumn. I've missed a whole season of trying to grow the pitches in, because we're going into late going to be difficult to grow pitches over the winter. So we really want to get in there, and that's a number one priority. Get working on those pitches ASAP.
Mm. And then be able to use it fully for from next spring, then next summer.
Probably not next summer. I think the summer after that. But we'd like to get a 1 year under our belt. If we had, as I say, the most important things are pitches. We can work around anything else, any construction or anything like that with physical buildings. We can work around that. But the number one priority is getting those pitches in.
Back to the operational cost. According to this media piece I was referring to, we now have a wage bill of something in the area of 20 million a year. Was that correct?
That's probably everything. Yeah.
Yeah. How far down can you squeeze that and still be able to compete? There must be a limit to how much you can save that way.
That's exactly my point, and why we need players. Occasionally we'll have to sell a player to fill the gap, because when we lost the parachute payments, that was a huge black hole in the budget. So to do operational turnover of 18 million and have just a revenue stream of 18 million obviously doesn't work. So and as I say, I've squeezed as far as you can. Fair play to Barnsley on what they did this season, but that's an outlier. When you're trying to play the probabilities, you can't rely on having budgets that low and still try and maintain competitiveness in the championship. So I think our recruitment's gotten a lot better. I think the methodology we use for recruitment, the people that we're bringing in, the coaching staff, everybody's aligned on making sure we've got that right balance of senior players and young players coming through that gets us what we need.
And we probably had a bit of luck then with Eze. I guess him going to the Premier League was exactly what we needed at the right time.
Yep, I think that's right. As he fantastic player, fantastic lad as well. Still keeps in touch with a lot of people at the club. We got ourselves into a little bit of trouble over the winter because he maybe keeps in too close contact with the club when he turned up for a match, and got our hands smacked for that one. But yeah, it was he was always destined, and that's really where we are. It's developing players to say, look, if we get this right, we're developing players, and we're growing as a club, working together, and we all grow into the Premier League. If we don't, we develop you to the point where if you outgrow us, there is still that next step you can go to. The ideal solution, though, is you go with us.
And the abuse you get on social media when you sell your star player, that's something that we can live with, I guess.
I have absolutely no idea what abuse I get on social media because I never go on social media. I don't have any social media. I tell Paul Morrissey, just keep track of things for me if there are any issues I need to know about. But otherwise, social media, if I had a social media account, I'd probably be fired by the end of the first week of having it, because I know how I react to things and how and what a short fuse I have, and I'm sure I'd say something that would probably be inappropriate and led to the exit. So every time I've mentioned about, what do you think of me getting a social media account, Paul's hair gets a little bit grayer, and I think he loses a bit more as well. That's why Ian Taylor left. He couldn't take it anymore.
Well, I guess I should ask Paul then how he feels being your firewall or the club's firewall on social media, because there is, of course, a lot of anger out there when somebody when you end up selling your best players.
Well, yeah, sorry, if you wanted me to come in there. Yeah, I mean, from that point of view, I have to say, I think from watching and social media and the general responses, I actually think the QPR supporters are really well educated in terms of the direction the club has gone and the direction the club needed to go in. So they recognise that the route that we as a club are taking, and I don't think many QPR fans would have expected Iberi Eze to stay at the club this season after the impact he had last season, and obviously it put us in a stronger financial position to reinvest in the squad and hopefully progress on the pitch now as well.
I guess the only thing I would follow up with that is I've only done what I said I would do when I came in. So it's, one of the questions I said, well, how do you fill the gap? I said, well, we'd have to sell players on occasion. And it's like, how do you go forward if you have to sell your best players? So, my response to that was, well, what we have to do, because unless somebody wants to come in and pay big money for the bad ones, the good ones will have to go every once in a while. But as I say, this summer is a little different. I think this is about consolidation, holding on to people, and taking a step.
And when somebody tells us that the owners are paying roughly £1 million a month to keep the club alive, that's more or less correct. That's more or less what they're doing.
That's right. It's a bit more during COVID, because obviously gate revenue and sponsorship went down, and the other thing that really held up was retail, but everything else obviously took a nosedive.
So when you tell us that the owners are good guys, that's because you can't afford to say anything else, right?
Well, one, they genuinely are. Which always helps. It's good to like the people you work for. I have to say that I do like them very much. I find them very honorable people. I've always done the right thing. Anything we've asked for them, they've been quite clear about what they can do and what they won't do, and have really just kept things going. So there are a lot worse places to be in terms of the positions that we're in, and there are a few owners out there where the fans would if we're actually comparing owner to owner, would say, I think I'd much rather have the QPR owners than I would my current owner.
Håkon, before you continue, maybe you should ask some of the participants. Do you have any questions? Quiet, very quiet in Norway.
No, you must be doing a good job with the questions.
Probably.
They're
Okay,
leaving it to you.
Håkon, bare fortsett.
Yeah. One thing that might be a little tricky, and you answer it if you feel like. I've heard you being fairly outspoken when it comes to racism in football. There are clips out, for instance, when you were discussing the incident with the youth team in Spain some time ago. Is there any discussion in the football industry when it comes to ownership and racism? And we have clubs that are owned by the Emirates, we have clubs that are owned from Saudi Arabia, and I could claim that these are states that are that have racism more or less as a business idea, and still they are in England, and they are owning, and their players are taking the knee on the field. Is this an issue that's being discussed in the industry at all?
No, quite honestly, no, it's not. I'm happy to answer that question. I don't know of there's never been any discussion in terms of how that works in terms of people who own a club, but if their nation is seen to have racist tendencies or seem to be embedded in racism. It's an interesting point. Never really thought about it before. I do think there was an issue at one point with the Saudis trying to take over something, but it was less to do with racism and more about piracy issues in Saudi Arabia. But no, it's fair enough. It's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Because this, what you're referring to, is probably Saudi Arabia and Newcastle.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What was about to happen there was that a financial entity that in practice represents the state tried to buy Newcastle United, and then it would not be just people from a certain nation; it would be the state itself being the owner, and then you can look at the state's track record on, for instance, racism. But as you say, that's not really something that has been talked about.
No, it hasn't been discussed. I mean, obviously, there's an owners and directors test that every owner has to fulfill, and I think that's where it fell down with the Premier League, with them not passing the owners and directors test.
Mm. Yeah, and there are other clubs, obviously, that are losing a lot more money than QPR. I'm now back to the championship again. Are there any other clubs that are now sort of about to fall into the trap that we were into a few years ago?
It's hard to say. When you hear about some of the wages that other clubs are allegedly paying, and I don't obviously have an insight into their books, you'd think there must be some people that are going to be in trouble this coming season. So obviously we had Sheffield Wednesday who got the points deduction for before. what will happen this summer with other clubs, I don't know, but I can't believe that there aren't clubs in similar situations out there. I suppose it's all going to come down to what kind of a mitigating effect they'll give to the COVID scenario and revenue when they start assessing these guys and how they've adhered to the profitability and sustainability rules, because obviously a few years ago Birmingham got hit with a points deduction as well. So it's out there now that if you do not pass the P&S profitability and sustainability rules, you will get points deducted. The other thing I can tell you is from our standpoint, for our club, we've got it completely under control.
What kind of impact has the parachute payment then from the Premier League? They are providing certain clubs with income that others don't have, and we now do not have it anymore.
That's it. Yeah, it's very difficult. And that's what I meant when I said there was a black hole in the budget. When we lost the parachute payment, bang. But it is difficult to transition out of that because your players are on a lot higher, so it's trying to transition down those wages down to where they're manageable and the income that you're bringing in. So sometimes, even especially the second year of a parachute payment, you still got some hangovers from the Premier League that you can't quite get rid of, and maybe who shouldn't be there. I think probably the implementation of the 25-man squad list will help people. But I think where where you'll see the clubs that are probably heading into a bit of trouble is when they have players on a big salary that aren't even listed on the 25-man squad. That's a sure sign that, okay, somebody's going to have in for a bit of bother this year, whether they have a parachute payment or not.
You've obviously been effective bringing in those new players. How about the Stefan Johansen situation? What can you tell us about that?
I was hoping you guys would be working on him because I know he's in Norway right now, but we would love to have Steph back. But he is a Fulham player, and Fulham really hold the keys to everything going forward. But Steph, I think Steph very much enjoyed his time here. We'd love to have him back, and so let's keep our fingers crossed.
And I've seen that 2 matches have been decided for the preseason. There will probably be a few more. Will you be staying in Great Britain or going overseas? Any news on that?
If we travel, it won't be very far because of just COVID, and it's looking more and more likely we'll just be staying here because there's just no sense in taking a chance. And if you're going abroad and having to isolate and everything else, it just takes away the whole point of the preseason trip. The only reason you might do something now would be just to give the boys a bit of a break from the training ground. Because at the training ground, they're all year, and maybe 4 or 5 days just training somewhere else, and that would be it. But I wouldn't look at there won't be any games abroad, that's for sure.
How are the feelings inside the club? I mean, in the administration, you have been following the club for so long time. We did one of our best, probably our best season since we were relegated from Premier League. How do you feel about the buzz at the club at the moment?
It's good. As I said before, when you talked about the optimism, I think there's just it's a real feel good factor around the club right now. So the staff are excited. The fans I speak to are excited. Staff are excited. We were sorry to see the season ended. We were doing well. We wanted to keep it going. So we're very much looking forward to this new season starting.
Final question from me. There's a story which we learned when we traveled over during the summer a few years ago, my wife and I, and we went to Loftus Road just to see what was going on. And we heard a story about what should we call it? Asian superstition. Flags in the the floodlights. There was a few flags up there, and there was also a story about something being buried on the sideline. You never heard of it?
I don't know about flags, but feng shui is obviously a very, very important to the Asian culture. So there's a lot to do with feng shui around the place in terms of trying to get the essence right. So that part we do we do have somebody come in and look at the feng shui. So yeah, it worked at Leicester. I'm hoping it works here.
Can you give us a few examples of what you have been doing?
It's like I think it depends on what new year it is, but like some of the there'll be something with fire, like a dragon or something. I think there's a couple of apples on my meeting room desk that have been placed in there. There's something to do with you're asking the wrong guy, because I see this stuff, but I really don't understand it. But I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Just put it there. I'll take anything. It'll help with anything. It's like marbles, aren't they, Maz? That are on there as well. That are set up. It's just little things like that. I don't know if anything you can think of. Those are the ones that come to the top of my head right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there are a few different ones, but like Lee said, what's important to note is that it's something that to the owners is something that they really believe in. And like Lee says, if there's anything that can give us any form of advantage, then we'll certainly look into it.
Yeah, but it is literally all based on feng shui.
Yeah, Kåre, your hand was up previously. Do you still have your hand?
I have my hand. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
All right. I'm in the car. I'm on the way to a away game for girls 17. But it's a very good side. So I hope I can take the team back to QPR and have some match in London, if possible.
Oh, yeah. Just can let Andy Evans know. He handles the community handle the women's side. Yeah.
Yes, I have talked about this to Andy Evans and Lee.
Who's got? It wasn't me, I swear. Oh, there we go.
I'm back. Lee, thank you very much for attending this meeting. In June last year, QPR Norway was to be visited by coaches from the academy at QPR, together with Andy Evans. We had been really looking forward to this, but then came the COVID-19. Do you think it will be possible to have a visit like this in the future, 2022 or later? Is it possible, you think?
Yeah, I'm sure once things open back up again, that we can get, the sooner we can get back to business as normal, the better. If we've organized it once, I can't believe it will be a problem organizing it again. The only thing we need now is guidance of when we're finally getting out of all this, because I think that's the one thing that there's a lot of optimism around, but there's also very much a source of frustration of just not knowing what we can actually do, and every time you think you're nearly there, then something else happens and it gets delayed.
Thank you very much. Good to hear. And to you, Lee and Paul, I will say thank you for all the support the staff in London are doing to the QPR Norway. Everywhere in the club, we met helpful and nice people. Let them know that we are very thankful to the great support you are doing for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's nice to get nice feedback, because I know normally the staff only get the negative feedback, so it's nice to be able to pass on some positive feedback to them.
I think I'd like to repeat that also, because you guys have always made us feel part of the club, even though we can't be there on a regular basis like we wanted to. And personally, a special thanks to Paul Morrissey. He is the guy we have known for the longest time, and we've always felt that we have been sort of included and treated as part of the famous QPR family.
Good. That's well done. Take a bow, Maz.
If no one else has any more questions, I think we'll just round off this event. And as Kåre and Håkon said, thank you so much for doing this, and we wish you all a great summer.
Oh, thank you, and you too. And hopefully we're able to welcome you back very, very soon. So fingers crossed.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Cheers, Alan.
See you now.
Thanks. Dag,
Bye.
thanks for your kind comments as well. Appreciate that.